2,847 kilograms of processed beef per week. That's what the United States Quartermaster Corps allocated to a single infantry regiment deployed to the Burma India Theater in 1944. Enough meat to feed 3,000 men 3 hot meals daily. Canned pork, tinned ham, dehydrated mutton, spam in industrial quantities. The logistical apparatus required to deliver this protein mountain into the jungles of Southeast Asia involved refrigerated ships, forward supply depots carved into hillsides, and a motor transport pool of 147 vehicles dedicated solely to moving food. American soldiers ate like American soldiers were expected to eat, heavily, frequently, and with the industrial backing of the most powerful economy on Earth. Major Lawrence Drummond, United States Army Quartermaster Corps, stood beside a field kitchen in Imphal, Manipur, watching Indian Army troops from the 5th Mahratta Light Infantry receive their evening ration. Dal, chapati, rice, vegetables boiled in clarified butter, not a single gram of meat visible anywhere in the line. He turned to his British liaison officer and said it plainly. They refuse to eat real meat. How the hell are they supposed to fight a modern war on that? 72 hours later, those same Mahratta troops would hold a forward defensive position without relief, without resupply, and without sleep, while the heavily fed American regiment 6 kilometers to their west buckled under sustained Japanese assault and required emergency reinforcement to avoid collapse. What happened in those 3 days shattered every assumption Lawrence Drummond held about nutrition, endurance, and the physiological requirements of modern infantry warfare. The India-Burma Theater in 1944 was a logistical nightmare dressed in monsoon rain and malarial mosquitoes. 2 Allied command structures operated in uneasy parallel: Southeast Asia Command under Lord Louis Mountbatten, responsible for British and Commonwealth forces, and the American-led Northern Combat Area Command under General Joseph Stilwell. The strategic objective was identical: push the Japanese 15th Army back across the Chindwin River and reopen the Burma Road to supply nationalist China. The methods, however, could not have been more different. American forces arrived in theater with a logistical doctrine forged in North Africa and Italy: mechanized, centralized, overwhelming. For every frontline soldier, the U.S. Army deployed 4.2 support personnel. The daily caloric requirement for an American infantryman was set at 4,758 calories, significantly higher than the 3,200-calorie baseline established by British and Indian command. This wasn't arbitrary. American military nutritionists, operating under the influence of Depression-era studies linking physical mass to combat effectiveness, believed that larger soldiers with higher muscle mass performed better under sustained combat stress. The ration science was explicit. Meat equaled strength. Protein equaled endurance. A 1943 War Department field manual stated unambiguously, the combat soldier requires a minimum of 113 grams of animal protein per day to maintain peak physical performance. The Indian Army operated under no such doctrine. Its rations reflected religious and cultural dietary traditions spanning centuries. Hindu soldiers from Mahratta and Rajputana regiments consumed no beef. Muslim soldiers from Punjab regiments consumed no pork. Many units fielded significant proportions of vegetarian Brahmins and Jains who consumed no meat whatsoever. Their daily ration, approximately 680 grams of wheat flour, 140 grams of rice, 85 grams of dal, 85 grams of ghee, and vegetables as available. Total protein content, roughly 78 grams per day, only 12 of which came from animal sources in the form of dairy. By American standards, this was nutritionally catastrophic. Major Drummond wasn't alone in his assessment. A February 1944 Inter-Allied Logistics Conference in New Delhi featured a heated exchange between American and British supply officers over ration policy. The Americans presented data. Their soldiers averaged 79 kilograms in body weight versus 64 kilograms for Indian troops. They could carry heavier loads, sustain longer marches, and required less frequent rest intervals. Lieutenant Colonel Howard Bixby, speaking for the Quartermaster Corps, put it bluntly in a memorandum later declassified in 1978, Indian forces are operating at a 31% caloric deficit compared to optimal combat nutrition standards. This deficit is particularly acute in animal protein, which directly correlates to muscle recovery rates and sustained exertion capability. The British response, delivered by Brigadier Arthur Webb of the Indian Army Service Corps, was icily polite. "Our soldiers," he said, "have been fighting in these conditions since 1942. They are not operating at a deficit. They are operating at equilibrium." The Americans didn't believe him. The doctrinal chasm went deeper than rations. American infantry doctrine emphasized firepower over maneuver, mechanical transport over foot mobility, and overwhelming material superiority over tactical improvisation. An American rifle company in Burma moved with approximately 1,870 kilograms of equipment, including crew-served weapons, ammunition, radios, and medical supplies. An equivalent Indian rifle company moved with 980 kilograms. The difference wasn't poor supply, it was philosophy. Indian Army doctrine, inherited from decades of frontier warfare on the northwest frontier, prioritized endurance, minimal logistics, and the ability to operate independently for extended periods without resupply. Light, fast, self-sufficient. The contrast was starkest in field kitchens. An American battalion required a mobile field kitchen weighing 680 kilograms, staffed by 8 cooks, supplied by refrigerated trucks, and producing 3 hot meals daily. An Indian battalion required a portable chula stove, weighing 14 kilograms, operated by 2 cooks per company, supplied by porters, and producing 2 hot meals daily using dry rations that could be prepared in under 30 minutes. When supply lines broke, and in Burma they broke constantly, American units faced immediate operational degradation. Indian units continued. The 5th Mahratta Light Infantry exemplified this. Raised in 1768, the regiment had fought in every major campaign from Mysore to Mesopotamia. Its soldiers were recruited predominantly from Maharashtra's agrarian communities, wiry, lean men averaging 1.68 meters in height and 62 kilograms in weight. They looked, to American eyes, inadequate, too small, too thin, too reliant on a diet that seemed almost deliberately insufficient. Major Drummond's observation in Imphal wasn't casual racism. It was doctrinal conviction. He believed, as his training and his manuals told him to believe, that the Indian troops were operating at a physiological disadvantage that would inevitably manifest under sustained combat stress. He was about to be proven catastrophically wrong. By March 1944, the Japanese 15th Army under Lieutenant General Renya Mutaguchi had launched Operation U-Go, a massive offensive aimed at capturing Imphal and Kohima, severing Allied supply lines, and opening the door to an invasion of India itself. 3 Japanese divisions, approximately 84,000 men, struck across the Chindwin River with orders to encircle and destroy Allied forces in Manipur. The result was the largest and bloodiest battle fought by British and Commonwealth forces in the entire Southeast Asian theater. It was also the perfect laboratory to test every assumption about nutrition, endurance, and combat effectiveness under extreme conditions. The Japanese assault hit the Imphal perimeter on March 8, 1944, with an intensity that caught even veteran units off guard. 3 coordinated thrusts, one from the north toward Kohima, one from the east toward Palel, and one from the south toward Tidium. The 5th Mahratta Light Infantry held positions in the southern sector, anchoring a defensive line stretching 4.2 kilometers along a ridge line designated Hill 5120. The American 5307th Composite Unit, Merrill's Marauders, held positions 6 kilometers to the west along the Silchar track. The Americans were better equipped by every measurable standard. Each rifleman carried an M1 Garand semi-automatic rifle, 80 rounds of ammunition, 2 fragmentation grenades, a bayonet, entrenching tool, full webbing, steel helmet, gas mask, field jacket, and a 3-day supply of K rations. Total combat load, 29 kilograms. The Mahrattas carried a bolt-action Lee Enfield No. 4 rifle, 50 rounds of ammunition, 1 grenade, a bayonet, minimal webbing, a turban or side cap, and a 1-day supply of dry rations. Total combat load, 18 kilograms. On paper, the Americans had the advantage. In practice, they had the burden. The first 48 hours of sustained combat revealed something neither the American command nor Major Drummond anticipated. The Indian troops didn't tire. Not in the way the manuals predicted. Not in the way physiology suggested they should. The Mahrattas rotated fighting positions without withdrawing from the line. They slept in 2-hour shifts. They ate once daily, at dusk, preparing chapati and dal over small fires lit in covered positions that Japanese observers couldn't spot. When Japanese infantry probes came at night, and they came every night, the Mahrattas responded with rifle fire so disciplined and sustained that Japanese after-action reports described facing machine gun emplacements where only individual riflemen existed. The Americans, by contrast, required regular meal rotations, systematic rest intervals, and frequent water resupply. Their heavier equipment loads caused accelerated fatigue in the humidity. The published heat index exceeded 38 degrees Celsius daily. Soldiers carrying 29 kilograms in that heat required hydration at intervals of 45 to 60 minutes. The Mahrattas, carrying 11 kilograms less, required hydration every 90 to 120 minutes. The difference seems minor. Over 72 hours, it became operationally decisive. By the evening of March 10th, Japanese forces launched a coordinated night assault across the entire southern perimeter. 2 battalions, approximately 1,400 men, struck the Mahratta positions on Hill 5120. The assault began at 22:30 hours with a 15-minute artillery barrage, followed by infantry waves moving under cover of darkness through elephant grass and bamboo thickets. The Mahrattas held, no retreat, no reinforcement requested. They fought through the night with bayonets when ammunition ran low, using entrenching tools as weapons when bayonets broke, and continuing to fight with bare hands when tools were lost. An Indian Army liaison officer, Captain Prem Singh, wrote in his operational diary, "I have never witnessed such sustained violence at close quarters." The Mahrattas did not yield a single metre. Not one. When dawn broke, Japanese bodies lay in heaps 15 meters from our forward positions. Our casualties, 43 dead, 89 wounded. We held. 6 kilometers west, the American positions along the Silchar track faced a smaller Japanese probe. Approximately 600 men attempting to flank the main defensive line. The Americans repelled the attack successfully, inflicting heavy casualties through superior firepower. But the cost was visible. By dawn on March 11th, the American battalion commander requested relief. His men had been in sustained contact for 36 hours. They were exhausted. Ammunition stocks were low. Rations were depleted. Water supplies were critical. The Mahrattas, by contrast, had been in sustained contact for 48 hours. They requested nothing. Major Drummond arrived at the Mahratta Forward Command Post on the afternoon of March 11th, carrying supply manifests and a list of logistical recommendations. He expected to find soldiers in various stages of collapse. He found men cleaning rifles, sharpening bayonets, and preparing evening rations over small fires. They looked lean. They looked tired. But they did not look defeated. He asked the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Raghunath Kare, a direct question: "How are your men sustaining this tempo?" Kare's response, recorded in a post-battle debrief archived at the Imperial War Museum: "Major, my men have been eating dal and chapati since they were children. Their bodies know this fuel. Your soldiers eat like kings. Mine eat like farmers. But we are not weak. We are efficient." The word efficient hung in the air like a challenge. The third night, March 11th into March 12th, brought the largest assault yet. Japanese forces massed approximately 2,200 men for a concentrated breakthrough attempt on Hill 5120. The attack began at 0145 hours with mortar fire, followed by infiltration teams attempting to penetrate the Mahratta perimeter at 3 points simultaneously. The fighting lasted until 0620 hours. When it ended, the Japanese withdrew, leaving behind 318 confirmed dead and abandoning equipment, including 2 Type 92 battalion guns. The Mahrattas suffered 71 additional casualties. They did not withdraw. They did not request relief. At 0700 hours, they stood to for the morning stand-down, ate a cold breakfast of leftover chapati and raw onions, and resumed defensive positions. Major Drummond watched this from a forward observation post 400 meters behind the ridgeline. He had come to deliver emergency ration supplies, tinned meat, condensed milk, energy bars. The supplies sat in crates, untouched. The Mahrattas didn't want them. They didn't need them. They had what they required: wheat flour, dal, ghee, and water. That was sufficient. By midday on March 12th, 72 hours into sustained combat, the American battalion to the west finally received relief. The 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment rotated forward to replace exhausted troops who had held the line for 3 days. The official after-action report, declassified in 1982, stated plainly the battalion was no longer combat effective due to accumulated fatigue and resource depletion. Immediate relief was required to maintain defensive integrity. The Mahrattas remained in position. They would hold Hill 5120 for another 11 days before rotating out of the line. Total time in sustained combat, 14 days. Total days without resupply of fresh rations, 14 days. Total casualties, 187 killed, 343 wounded. Total meters of ground surrendered, 0. The physiological explanation eluded Major Drummond because he was searching for it in the wrong place. He believed the answer lay in muscle mass, protein intake, and caloric density. The actual answer lay in metabolic adaptation, generational dietary conditioning, and operational doctrine. The human body adapts to the fuel it receives consistently over years. Indian soldiers raised on vegetarian or low-meat diets developed metabolic pathways optimized for carbohydrate and plant-based protein processing. Their bodies stored glycogen efficiently, released energy steadily, and required less frequent caloric intake to maintain baseline function. American soldiers raised on high-protein, high-fat diets developed metabolic pathways optimized for rapid energy release and higher baseline caloric requirements. Neither system was superior in isolation. But under sustained combat stress with irregular resupply, the metabolic efficiency of the Indian system became a combat multiplier. This wasn't mystical endurance. It was biology. The Mahrattas didn't survive on less food. They survived on the food their bodies had learned to process optimally. The Americans didn't fail because they were weak. They failed because their logistical doctrine assumed continuous resupply of a dietary standard their bodies required to function effectively. When that supply chain broke, and in Burma it broke constantly, the physiological gap became operational reality. A March 1944 medical report compiled by the Indian Army Medical Corps included data from field hospitals treating soldiers from both American and Indian units after sustained combat. American soldiers exhibited higher rates of acute exhaustion, dehydration-related complications, and gastrointestinal distress attributed to disrupted meal schedules. Indian soldiers exhibited higher rates of minor infections and vitamin deficiencies, but significantly lower rates of acute combat fatigue. The report's conclusion, buried in Appendix C, Indian Army personnel demonstrate superior endurance under sustained operations with irregular resupply, likely attributable to metabolic adaptation to low caloric density rations consumed consistently over lifetime dietary patterns. Major Drummond never saw that report. But he saw the Mahrattas hold Hill 5120. He saw them eat dal and chapati after 3 days of continuous combat. He saw them sharpen bayonets at dawn, while his own countrymen required medevac for exhaustion. And somewhere in that observation, his certainty cracked. Not broken, not dismissed, but cracked. On the morning of March 13th, Major Drummond requested permission to accompany a Mahratta patrol into no man's land to recover wounded and assess Japanese positions. The request was unusual. American liaison officers typically remained at battalion headquarters. But Lieutenant Colonel Kare granted it, assigning Drummond to a 10-man patrol led by Havildar Govind Patil. They moved out at 0530 hours before full light through a landscape transformed by violence. The ridgeline was cratered, scorched, littered with spent cartridges, abandoned equipment, and bodies in various stages of decomposition. The smell was unbearable. The silence was worse. They moved in single file, 5 meters between each man, rifles at low ready. At 0547 hours, Havildar Patil raised his fist. The patrol froze. Japanese voices, approximately 80 meters east. The patrol went to ground, lying motionless in elephant grass, still wet with morning dew. They remained there for 4 minutes, not moving, not speaking, barely breathing. Drummond, lying third in line, felt his heart hammering against the earth. The Mahrattas beside him seemed carved from stone. The Japanese voices faded. Patil rose slowly, motioned the patrol forward. They continued. At 0610 hours they reached the objective, a small depression 200 meters forward of the Mahratta line, where 2 wounded soldiers had been reported by forward observers. Both men were alive. Both had been there for 36 hours. One had a shattered femur. The other had taken shrapnel across his abdomen and chest. They had no morphine, no water. They had lain in that depression, under sporadic Japanese fire, waiting for extraction that might never come. The patrol rigged improvised stretchers using rifles and ground sheets. They began the return journey at 0625 hours, moving slowly, 2 men per stretcher, rotating carriers every 50 meters. At 0643 hours, Japanese observers spotted them. Rifle fire snapped overhead. The patrol dropped, returned fire, then resumed movement under covering fire from the ridgeline. They reached friendly lines at 0702 hours. Both wounded men survived. Major Drummond helped carry one of those stretchers for 400 meters. The Mahratta soldiers rotated him out after the first interval, not because he lacked strength, but because he lacked the specific endurance required to carry a stretcher over broken ground while maintaining tactical awareness. The soldiers who replaced him, men who hadn't slept more than 6 hours total in the past 4 days, carried that stretcher without pause, without complaint, without visible strain. One of them was eating a piece of chapati while he walked. Drummond sat in the battalion command post an hour later, drinking tea provided by a Sikh orderly, watching Havildar Patil brief Lieutenant Colonel Kare on the patrol. Patil spoke in Marathi. Drummond didn't understand the words, but he understood the delivery, calm, methodical, utterly devoid of drama. The patrol had gone out. It had accomplished its mission. It had returned. This was routine. Drummond realized, sitting there with a cup of tea trembling slightly in his hands, that he had been wrong about nearly everything. Not wrong about logistics. Logistics mattered. Not wrong about supply. Supply mattered. But wrong about the equation. He had believed that more food, more calories, more protein equaled more capability. The Mahrattas had proven something far more complex. That capability emerged not from abundance but from alignment. Alignment between doctrine and diet. Between logistics and culture. Between what a body was trained to do and what it was fed to do it with. The Americans had built an army provisioned for overwhelming material superiority and continuous resupply. It was a magnificent system. But it was also brittle. When the supply chain broke, the system degraded rapidly. The Indians had built an army provisioned for scarcity, endurance, and independence. It was a leaner system, but it was resilient. When the supply chain broke, the system adapted. There was no moral superiority in this, no claim to inherent toughness or mystical warrior spirit, just biology, just doctrine, just the accumulated result of generations eating the same food, walking the same hills, and learning what the body could do when it had no choice but to continue. Major Drummond filed his official report on March 15th. It was brief, technical, and utterly inadequate to capture what he had witnessed, but buried in paragraph 7 was a single sentence that acknowledged the crack in his certainty. Indian Army personnel demonstrated sustained combat effectiveness under conditions that would degrade American units, suggesting that current U.S. nutritional doctrine may be optimized for abundant supply conditions rather than sustained scarcity operations. It was the closest thing to an apology he could write. The Battle of Imphal continued until June 22, 1944. Total Allied casualties, approximately 12,600 killed, 40,000 wounded. Total Japanese casualties, approximately 30,000 killed, 23,000 wounded or missing. It remains the largest defeat ever inflicted on the Imperial Japanese Army. The 5th Mahratta Light Infantry received a theater honor for its defense of Hill 5120 and subsequent operations. The regiment's casualties for the entire Imphal campaign, 312 killed, 891 wounded. Not a single position assigned to the Mahrattas was ever taken by enemy assault. Major Lawrence Drummond returned to the United States in November 1944 and resumed duties with the Quartermaster Corps in Washington, D.C. He never served in combat again. In 1946, he contributed a technical appendix to a revised Army field manual on rations and nutrition. The appendix included a subsection on metabolic adaptation and dietary conditioning that acknowledged, for the first time in official U.S. military doctrine, that combat effectiveness could not be reliably predicted solely by caloric intake and protein consumption. The subsection ran to 3 paragraphs. It was the only part of the manual Drummond wrote himself. The Mahrattas' performance at Imphal didn't change American ration policy. The U.S. military continued to provision its forces with high-calorie, high-protein diets through Korea, Vietnam, and into the present day. This wasn't stubbornness. It was systemic reality. American soldiers, raised on American diets, required American provisioning to function effectively. The lesson of Imphal wasn't that one system was superior. It was that effectiveness is contextual, not universal. But the performance did change one assumption that had been treated as biological law, that physical mass and protein consumption directly correlated to combat endurance. The Mahrattas proved otherwise. Not through mysticism, not through superior genetics, but through the accumulated effect of bodies conditioned over lifetimes to function on specific fuel under specific conditions, paired with doctrine that acknowledged and exploited that conditioning. The dal and chapati that Major Drummond dismissed as inadequate sustained soldiers through 14 days of continuous combat. The 2,847 kilograms of processed beef allocated weekly to American regiments sustained soldiers through 3 days before requiring relief. Neither system failed. But under the specific conditions of Burma in 1944, broken supply lines, extreme heat, irregular resupply, and sustained combat stress, the lean system outperformed the abundant one. This is not romantic, this is physics. A lighter load travels further, a more efficient engine runs longer. A system designed for scarcity survives scarcity. A system designed for abundance fails when abundance ends. The Indian Army's vegetarian rations weren't a disadvantage. They were a feature masquerading as a constraint. And that realization, that what appears insufficient might actually be optimal, that abundance can mask brittleness, That resilience emerges from adaptation rather than overwhelming force is the single lesson from Hill 5120 that transcends the specific details of Burma, 1944. By June 1944, the Japanese 15th Army had been annihilated as a fighting force. The survivors retreated across the Chindwin River in conditions so catastrophic that Japanese commanders described the withdrawal route as the Road of Bones. The Allies secured the India-Burma border. The threat of a Japanese invasion of India ended permanently. The 5th Mahratta Light Infantry rotated out of the line on June 28, 1944. Total days in sustained combat since March 8, 112 days. Total hot meals consumed in that period, approximately 60. The regiment received 10 days rest, then redeployed to the Arakan for operations against Japanese positions in the coastal ranges. They ate dal and chapati the entire time. You can allocate 2,847 kilograms of meat per week to a regiment and still lose ground when the supply trucks stop running. Or you can teach soldiers to carry everything they need in a single cloth bag and watch them hold a ridgeline for 2 weeks on rations that wouldn't sustain a Brooklyn longshoreman for 3 days. Neither approach is right. Neither is wrong. But only one survives when the equation collapses, and what you brought with you is all you'll ever have. The Marathas didn't refuse to eat real meat out of stubbornness or ignorance. They simply never needed it in the first place. And that distinction between what you need and what you've been told you need is the difference between a system and a philosophy. Major Drummond learned that in 72 hours. It took the rest of the Allied command 4 more months. Efficiency, it turns out, isn't about having more, it's about requiring less. And the soldiers who mastered that equation didn't do it in a field manual. They did it over generations, one bowl of dal at a time, until their bodies forgot that abundance was ever the standard.